Hey everybody, this is Roger, and welcome to the Raising Millionaires podcast. I am your co-host, and this is...
Richard Lorenzen.
Man, that was a sloppy intro. It was funny, right? His record got clicked, the screen went dark, and I'm like, what happened? And it always does that. So Richard, we were talking right before this about some of the thoughts from an economic cycle perspective you
Mm-hmm.
were having. And I thought it'd be good to kick off this call thinking about, like, we had Jackson Hole last week. We've got a Fed rate decision after the holiday, but this week is all about Nvidia earnings, right? That's all anybody can talk about as an indicator for, is the AI wave cresting? Is it still rising? How is that going to affect the overall market? They're expecting... It's funny, at a $4 trillion company, when you talk about a 6% move in either direction, you're talking a $240 billion swing in valuations.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think
Yeah.
all of this relates into what we were talking about, it from the context of selling services, right? And having a good year, people being willing to invest, but there's this negative undertow. I always think it's there, but you're starting to see something that you didn't before. What is it?
It's hard to define, but all throughout this year and even last year, I feel like there's this constant tug of war between, well, the economic data looks good and the stock market's up. We're at all-time highs. But then also this undertone of like everybody's kind of cautiously waiting for like another shoe to drop, whether it's uncertainty around tariffs, um, uncertainty around Fed policy. Is monetary supply going to loosen up or not? Um, and it seems like every single time that the country's been on recession watch over the past 3 years, like we somehow evaded it. And right now, I would say that for the past few months, like we nothing but confidence is what we've seen from like a lot of clients. But I don't know, that there's just some kind of gut feeling that I have about like it feels like we're getting later and later stage in this cycle.
I have to ask
And
a question though on that. Your target audience,
yes,
right, is different than mine. Could the economic cycle be more industry specific than macro environment
probably.
specific? Like, is the industry that you work with starting to make you a little nervous?
I don't know if it's our industry. I would say probably not. Like I
Okay.
on an industry level, so our clientele is primarily the financial industry, right? So investment banks, private equity, M&A, hedge funds, that wealth management, that sort of thing. Um, for the most part, I would say at the industry level, like deal flow is still good, and this depends a little bit on like, are you lower middle market, mid market, big cap, but like overall, like things have been pretty good. But I feel like when you look at the broader economy, the slowdown in the labor market, inflation doesn't really seem to be as under control as we would like. At some point, you know, could the is the party gonna end? But then again, if we see the Fed cut rates next month in September, like they're just gonna be adding more punch to the punch bowl. So it's we're in this weird in between, and I think Powell, we can go into like Jackson Hole, but like I think Powell even alluded to that in his speech at Jackson Hole. Like the economy is kind of in this. I think curious was the term that he used. State, um, where you're seeing the labor market cool a little bit, but you're seeing inflation still kind of stubborn, and economic growth is also hanging in there. So it's hard to get a gauge on the direction that we're going in. Um,
This is an important point too, because what did I learn from the trade that I made last week? So every trade that you make, you either win or you learn, is the
and
polite way
remind
to
us
look at it.
what the trade
What's
was.
that?
What was the trade again? Remind us what the position was that you took.
I took a defensive long on the UVIX, right? You can't do options on the VIX directly, so you have to buy it kind of as a
Derivative.
leverage derivative of it through the CBOE. And it was in case um, Powell stood his ground on interest rates. That, here's what I learned from that, because of course it didn't turn out to be a good trade, but
He was
the
dovish.
market went up 2%, right? So when I look at it in an economics perspective, like my portfolio went up greater than that because of the type of assets that I'm in. So that the gain in my portfolio far outweighed the loss in the downside protection. Had it gone the other way, right, that option would have become worth more. I would have sold it and bought into assets to cover my basis. So even though that specific trade didn't turn out to be a good trade, it was a defensive trade. But
It was
what I really learned from it was when we were just talking about Powell, like in the same podcast last week where I talked about taking the trade, I also talked about the persistence of the rise in prices, the rise of inflation. And
Yep.
then the Fed came out and said, right, Powell came out and said that we are now watching inflation and we may need to cut rates.
Mm-hmm.
I basically took a position that was contrarian to my own beliefs about what was going on. And I think that was probably the biggest thing that I learned. I wasn't allowing my micro moves to stay in line with my macro view of the markets. And that in of itself was a mistake. The position being defensive, right? It could have gone the other way and that could have been a great trade. It didn't. And then I look at, okay, I missed my own macro calls. So we'll chalk that one up as a lesson learned. It was a small position. And you'll love this. The day that I bought it, I was up 68%. And you know me, I never take it. I want to ride it through to what it was, and it ended up being almost a complete loss.
Got to get your double.
Got to get my double. It's not even about the double, though, right? Because on something like that, it would have been a 6x had the market moved the other direction at the same level of movement, right? So it is what it is.
Well, you sent me a trade over the weekend. Not really a trade, but you were looking at, I guess, the $30 January 2027 calls.
Yep, I did not take that one yet. So what we're talking about is it smart to trade Intel right now based on the government taking a 10% stake? Kevin O'Leary was on CNBC the other day, and he was pretty explicit about the fact, although there was a misunderstanding in what he said, that Intel has been dead for years. They should take it out behind the shed and shoot it. And his thing was, why would you give them money? I'm still trying to understand, didn't the US government already give them the money? Isn't this kind of like a backtrack? Like, now you give us equity because we gave you that, not we're going to give you more money. I haven't been able to get clarity on that.
Yeah, because the Trump administration is wording it as exactly that. Like they're getting
Yeah,
the
the CHIPS
share.
Act, what, 6 years old?
Yeah, so my understanding was that this stock was basically tied to the CHIPS Act, right? And so
So we're just getting equity for what we've already done, not
yeah,
necessarily putting
I
more
don't
in.
I don't think there's money out of pocket for the shares that were just acquired, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. So is Intel a good trade now? The biggest concern that I had is coming out of that huge run up on Friday is what would happen this week. Like, should we give some of that back? So if Intel's up 18% since the announcement and the market's up 3% since Powell spoke, is there a little bit of pullback in there? And we are seeing it a little bit in Intel, but I don't think anybody's willing to do anything right now until Nvidia's earnings tomorrow. So, like, the whole market's just kind of frozen.
I mean, if I were going to buy Intel, I would wait for a little bit of a pullback. But at the same time, I think about, basically Trump holds it for all intents and purposes. Trump holds this 10% stake in Intel. And so at least for the next 3.5 years, every time, and we saw this on Truth Social this morning, he posted about how he loves seeing the Intel stock go up and up and up. There's going to be a lot more tweets and truths like that over the next 3.5 years. And every time he posts something like that, the stock's going to go up.
You would think, though, but he's not getting that this week. So that's one of the things that slowed me
Well,
down a little bit, too. Is there going to need to be some major catalyst? Is this like an anti-meme play,
well,
right? Are the memers not jumping in for some reason?
the stock's already up. That's why, I think. But if we see a pullback and then,
We are
60,
seeing, right? They announced it 20, and then we got flat. No, they announced at 23. We got a 25.50, and now we're back to 24.20. I think a good entry point is 23, but I'd still be buying those 18-month options, not the stock directly.
And so what you sent me over the weekend was basically the $30 January 2027 calls, which at the time strike price was $4. And so you think based on your text, you think that could 5x maybe.
Yeah, the option could be because one meme, that's if they run the stock up to $50, right? They double it from here. That's going to be a 5x on that option, and you've got half of Trump's administration for him to pull it off, right? The government has a vested interest. They're going to announce some type of large contract. I'm sure the Trump family has pulled some type of interest on the back of that. So they're going to want to push it. And he needs one good meme run to pull that kind of return. So it's still on the table. I didn't execute it. I'll probably wait too long on it. It's just, right, pull back to 23 and I might jump the gun again. What did I said? 3 contracts is $1,200. $1,200 is $7,500 to $10,000 if it runs to 50.
Yep. Cool. Okay. We'll keep an eye on that one over the next 18 months. Okay.
All right.
What else is going on in the news? Well, so Nvidia, going back to Nvidia, they're reporting tomorrow afternoon, so Wednesday after the close. It will also be interesting as an indicator of the broader AI sector, whether or not this is a bubble that's overheating. There was an article about that I sent you.
There's a ton of articles about the bubble. You always send me articles to websites I don't have subscriptions to.
Everybody's got a paywall these days.
They do.
Where do you get your news?
GPT. No, I'm joking. CNBC really is my primary source. So tell us about, okay, so this article says the guy who shorted Enron has a warning about the AI boom. There's a lot of these articles coming out. We talked about it last week with Sam Altman. What's his name from Alibaba, right? Like there was this great comparison, I think yesterday on CNBC, where there was an overlay of like when Netscape went public with the launch of ChatGPT and what happened to the NASDAQ and how they're charting. Well, actually, they'd be charting like this and what the expectation might be on the back end of that. What are you seeing in that article?
So the article is about Jim Chanos, who is famous hedge fund guy. Chanos runs I think he's a billionaire. He runs a hedge fund that shorts companies, and he's most famous for having shorted Enron before the company collapsed. He, based on this article, I guess what he's saying that he thinks that AI is a bubble that could be about to pop. It doesn't say if he's actually taking a short position or not, but that's what it implies. So you have another guy kind of adding his voice to Sam Altman and all these other guys over the last couple of days saying that they're bearish on
Do you
AI.
think that every one of these thought leaders in the investing in AI space that's saying that there's a bubble coming is right if you elongate the time horizon just long enough? Yeah. It's like Robert Kiyosaki's been saying the world's going to end economically for 18 years, right? If he keeps saying it, it may happen before he dies.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely think there's no timeline that's defined in this article, and I haven't really seen any of the other ones. Some of these other influencers that are calling for for shorting AI, like none of them really specify a timeline for when, for obvious reasons, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like what's his name from The Big Short? I'm not going to think of it. But right, he was spot on about what was going to happen to the housing market, but he was just early enough where it became very painful for his investors to ride out the wave. But then the return was so great, right? Depending on how much cash you have, you can be on the right side of this bubble. But, right, if you have enough cash to ride out being wrong just long enough.
Right. Because AI could easily continue making new highs the rest of this year.
Oh, it could run for another 2 years. It really could.
So
it could run as long as Trump's administration is willing to pop it up with federal money.
That's the other thing to think about too. Not just that, but also if we're about to head into a new cycle of Fed easing, it's going to extend the lifespan of a lot of these already frothy.
So tariffs were designed to purposely create inflation for the middle class, if you think one even exists, so that Trump could get the Fed to cut rates on federal borrowing so he can reduce the deficit. So destroy middle America to save the country. Is that what you're saying? Oh, wait, no, that's what I'm saying. Sorry. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think there's a reason you still never asked me to tag you on any of these social media posts.
That's an elaborate plot.
It's called a strategy, Richard. It's called a strategy.
That's what's going to happen, right?
It is happening. It's playing out, right?
So yeah, I mean, I do think it looks pretty likely at this point. You're going to see, when's the Fed meeting? September 16 or 17? I
No, I
think
thought it was earlier than that.
Oh, is it?
Don't
How
quote
much
me.
earlier could it be? You got Labor Day next
I'm
week.
about as good with dates as I am with directions.
But I think it looks pretty likely that we're going to see a quarter point cut. And the markets are kind
You're
of
right, September 17th. I thought it was 7th for some
Right.
reason.
It looks also like the markets are pricing in a second cut in December for another quarter point.
Well, if inflation starts to book in what I feel like I am seeing in the actual economy, there's going to be additional rate cuts. There's job losses coming. There's rate, like inflation is like, I do not think it's sub 3%. So undoubtedly, I think more rate cuts are coming. So that elongates all of this as well. So those that are in the market are making massive amounts of money. The rest of the 50% of America that's not is just paying more for everything.
I have clients that are expecting as much as 1.25% in Fed cuts over the next 12 to 18 months.
I could see that in 12 to 18 months to fight inflation. Because really a lot of the tariff numbers still haven't been baked in.
Rate cuts.
No, I said yes, I can see that because I don't think the tariff costs have been baked into goods, which is inflation. So as that climbs 4 or hits 5%, wait, if inflation goes up, rates have to go up to tame it.
That's what I'm saying is that actually when you cut rates, you're actually fueling inflation, not fighting it.
Yeah, what am I saying here? Man, I just ruined like 5 minutes of content. Took me a second to catch up with that.
No, so what you'll have is you'll have the inflationary effects of the rate cuts combined with inflationary effects of any tariffs that still remain in effect in the long term.
Do you think LinkedIn is listening to me? Because I mentioned Kevin O'Leary's name and now I just got a thing that says that he posted a video. I never see his stuff.
That's what's happening. So, but mortgage rates are starting to come down a little bit too, which is interesting because when the Fed cut rates late last year or the beginning of this year, you didn't really see it translate through to reduce rates on mortgages. But I've been hearing from my own banker that there are lower rates available right now to refi, and so I'm curious to see where mortgage rates will go through the rest of this year. The average, it seems like, has gone from 7 to about 6.5.
Yep, I see 6.53 with a decent credit score and down payment.
And so that could potentially be have a stimulating effect for certain parts of the economy if we continue to see those rates go down.
No, I think that would be a huge one. You get that in the 5s or even at 5, and I think that you would see a huge unloading of that, coupled with Trump's proposed he structured some type of capital gains window for selling properties for investors. I don't know what happened to that bill. We talked about it a couple months ago, then I don't remember hearing about it again.
Yeah, I forget what that was, but there was a change that was proposed to the capital gains tax on selling real estate. I think that might have even applied to primary residences.
Well, now, is that your first mortgage or if you have 2 mortgages on your primary residence?
I don't know. The Fed. I'm just trying to research.
She is going to sue for being removed. Lisa Cook. One thing that was interesting that they were talking about today is this like a game of like 3D chess where does Powell have the authority to remove her? And if he does but doesn't, does Trump have leverage over Powell to remove him for not removing her? And I thought that was a pretty interesting conversation.
That's chess, not checkers.
Yeah, well, I said 3D chess.
3D chess. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how that works. Like, does the Fed chair have the ability to remove a Fed governor? I don't know.
I don't know. That was the thing that they were asking on. They were talking about today. I'm like, I just thought it was interesting.
Apparently, there might be a provision. I don't know if this made it into the final, the big beautiful bill, but 0% long-term capped gains if your income is below $96,000 for married couples. Trying to figure out what the change was on cap gains for selling a home.
I don't think anything for cap gains on real estate made it through.
I mean,
I
there's
feel like
already
that would have sent shockwaves through the housing market, and I have not seen that. So I
okay.
don't know if that is going to come in the future, but you feel like it's something that Trump would want during his administration. Free up the housing market a little bit, lower interest rates, put a bunch of money into the economy, right? That would be a boom for the stock market,
Mm-hmm.
consumer spending, a whole slew of things.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I can't find any info on whether that went anywhere. It probably did not. Currently, if you sell your home, the first $500,000 in cap gains, if it's your primary residence, is exempt from capital gains tax. But I thought that I saw some sort of, in one of the proposals anyway, there was a provision that either increased that exemption threshold or extended it in some other way. But I guess there were no changes on that.
Yeah. And I think this relates mostly to like, yeah, individuals and primary residents are one thing, but the boomers that are holding on to real estate portfolios of 25, 50 homes, right, would love to exit and put that cash away in a nest egg,
Yep.
especially if they're carrying any type of notes on it. But they can't because they've increased in value so much, they'd be giving up such a chunk of wealth that it's just not worth it.
Yep. Oh, there are so many boomers who would love to sell that and just get out of the landlord business and park it in equities,
Annuity.
frankly. Yeah, like SPY, like index funds. But they can't do it right now. But when that happens, that will be interesting for the supply balance of the market. Um, and on the one hand, it brings in new supply, which we've needed. But on the other hand, it could be a lot of supply. So when you talk about making housing accessible for Gen Z, that might
Make
be.
housing great again.
Say that again.
Make housing great again,
Make
Richard.
housing great again. Yes. Yep. Okay. So that's AI. That's the housing market. I didn't expect for AI to segue into the housing market, but it did. Um,
I did that. I don't even know. I'm on fire today, Richard. I can't keep up with anything. This is what happens when we start 30 minutes later. My brain is trained for a specific time.
Markets are all up a little bit. The VIX is up 1.5. Now it's 1%. That's kind of notable actually because the market's not even up anywhere near that.
No, I mean the markets are up like the Dow's up less than 1/10%.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, everything's waiting for tomorrow.
yeah.
Oh, so this was another big one. I don't know if you've heard anything about this. Do you think Apple should be buying Perplexity?
Uh, should they be buying Perplex? I understand why they're doing it. They want skin in the game on AI. They want a meaningful piece of the pie. Uh, are you talking about this through the lens of like antitrust, or are you talking about through the lens of like privacy?
No, talking about market conditions, they were talking today that if Apple did this, which would be very different than their approach to deal making in the Tim Cook era, that Apple would most certainly see new all-time highs. And wasn't it Perplexity that made the unsolicited, like $35 billion bid for Google search when they're only a $20 billion company?
Yep, it was.
So that would be a big shakeup considering Apple's position where they get paid not to be in search by Google.
Mm-hmm.
This would just be a seismic market shift in the search AI search marketplace.
Yep. How do you think that would play out if they were to buy Perplexity today? What does that look like integrating into Apple's core business?
Well, I think it's a subset of their business because they've never really had search.
Right.
right? So it would give them, like they talk about how like Amazon has got all of these different cache machines. Google has a lot of different cache machines, but its biggest one, search and search ads, is facing questions about sustainability over the long term. Apple has got a huge income stream for not being in search, but they've never really had search by choice, right?
Mm.
They can't catch up and build it now. They're probably not even going to catch up and build their own AI. They're either going to do a partnership or they're going to buy somebody. They're sitting on $120 billion in cash, and Perplexity is getting ready to raise it, I think, a $20 billion valuation, right?
Are they looking at an IPO, Perplexity?
No, I don't know. They are raising right now at a $20 billion. I don't know if they're raising $2 billion at that valuation
Private
or
market.
how much they're raising, but I do not know that an IPO is directly in front of them right now. I don't know that it isn't, though, either. I want to be careful with that. I have no clues what I should be saying.
Do you think there's an integration between Siri and Perplexity?
Apple does have some AI functions, right? It's not that they don't, they're just not at the level of them embracing it publicly like many other companies. So Siri does have AI working inside of it. Apple, the iPhone cameras have AI working inside of it in the 16 and or 17s and newer phones. So could Siri and Perplexity become one? I think they would have to be, right? Siri is, for all intents and purposes, Apple's search function, but doesn't it pull most of its information from Google?
Yeah.
So giving it a new source of truth. Here's the where do LLMs or AI search engines get their information from? I thought it was crazy that, do you know what resources at the top of the list for where they learn from?
Is it not Google?
It's not Google.
Is it Bing?
Nope. It's Reddit.
Interesting. I could
I have
kind
a
of,
problem with that because of the crap that I see on Reddit, if that's where
yeah,
it's learning from.
I could see that though because of Reddit's dominance in search on Google
Well,
and
yeah, and Reddit isn't in the same cash flow quadrant as Google search, right? So if you want to build an engine not off of a competitor giving it value, go somewhere where it isn't. And that I think is Reddit. It's something like 43 to 47% of LLM training is done on Reddit.
I
That kind of blew
wonder
my mind.
I wonder if that's not just because of the scope of information available on Reddit, but also the way that information is contextualized on Reddit.
Like that would make sense. The best comparison I saw is I like when I was still in college, there was always this thing: you're not allowed to quote Wikipedia because it's not factually based information.
Yeah.
It's crowdsourced, right? It's
Yeah.
not the professor didn't say it's official. But now we're going to use what everybody's saying on Reddit, which has zero filter for reality, right? If I wanted to train an LLM, I could probably set up an engine to post the craziest garbage about like the most random thing. In 6 months from now, it could be truth, and I guarantee people are doing that.
Well, that we talked about that a couple weeks ago on the show. Is if you wanted to start a disinformation campaign through AI, couldn't you publish a bunch of disinformation on, you can put up a bunch of websites online and eventually it's going to influence the results that you're getting on ChatGPT about that topic?
Yeah, I mean it's no different than setting up a blog network back in the day for SEO, right? If you set up 1,000 authority-based domains and they're all linking to the same one source, all of a sudden that source has authority in the eyes of Google.
Yep.
Except today now you need to just have a bunch of Reddit threads and posts coming from authority Reddit accounts. They get a lot of engagement, and then the LLMs see that as a source of truth.
The scariest difference to me though is that in when you're doing this through a network of blogs that are ranked on Google, you can Google is the sky blue, and like there might be a disinformation site that comes up on number one because of that network of blogs that's standing it up. But you can tell if the site that you're getting your information from is like, randommomandpop.com telling you that the sky is not blue, like that's an indicator that like this is not a credible source. But if you go to ChatGPT and ChatGPT
People
was in
believe it.
that site, but you don't know the sourcing of what ChatGPT is telling you, that's actually much more powerful disinformation than it would be from some random xyz.com. So it's
Just so you know, too, the sky itself is not actually blue.
I'm just using I know the
The
reflection.
human eye, the way that light is refracted through the atmosphere, absorbs it as blue. Some animals actually see it as green.
Okay.
So then what color is it, Richard? Are you giving me disinformation? I'm losing it. I'm sorry.
That's gonna be a reel.
Okay, great. So here's another reel. I had a major fallout with the base 44 community this week.
Did they
Major.
exile you?
What's that?
Did they exile you?
They did. No, literally they did. I've been kicked out of everything. So there's this guy, John, in the communities. He is a representative of Base 44, whether he's a founder or he's a hired gun. He kind of manages all their communities. And then in their communities, they have moderators. So I was talking to John 2 weeks ago about needing a security audit for our fund website. And he's like, hey, we have no approved vendors. You'll have to like go out to Fiverr to find them. First off, I called him out for recommending Fiverr for somebody to do a security audit. I'm like, that's not a great piece of advice. Scary. So then I'm in the Discord channel and I'm asking for help on an API integration for 11 Labs, right? I'm sending text, it's creating an audio file, but I can't pull the audio file back into Base 44 to play. And one of their mods is like, hey, I can fix that for you if you pay me. And I'm like, what? Mods are now selling support? I'm like, I have an elite support level and you guys haven't responded to any of my tickets in 6 days and now a mod is selling me. I'm like, is this legit? And that mod went ballistic, right? Found posts on Reddit and started assaulting me, went crazy, blocked me from Discord, started blasting messages at me. Luckily, I took screenshots of everything because somebody called him out and he deleted it all. But then I woke up this morning and I'm gone. I'm not in any of the communities anymore. I'm like, what the F happened? Right?
Wow.
I feel like somebody should say, Roger, thank you for pointing out our mods are selling in our community and tell me whether or not they should be doing that. I don't care if they are, right? I would have actually paid the guy had his work been confirmed as verified by Base 44 if he's selling in their community. But Richard, I'm blackballed, right? I can't get support anywhere now.
Reach out to Wix.
Yeah, well, I thought this morning I had all these ideas of how I was going to kind of counter this. And I'm like, you know what? I actually need to go make money. So let me concentrate on LinkedIn and email and my sales call. But I am looking at, and I've been talking to a couple people on Reddit about moving off of Base 44 to either Lovable or Replicate or some of the other platforms that might have a little bit more of a professional environment to work inside of. Especially after Base 44 deleting everybody's data last week.
Right.
It's been a nightmare with them, and it's absolutely crazy. I have to acknowledge their growth is insane. They're making more in a day than they were making in a month just 3 months ago. So it's gone parabolic for them. But man, if the wheels came off and that project imploded, right? Here it is, August 26, 2025, and they're making all of the wrong decisions. Who am I to sit here and question a company that sold for 80 million that's probably worth $1 billion now? But I'm doing it anyways. Base 44, your days are numbered.
Oh, so you and Base 44 are done.
I'm a blackballed, Richard. Hurt my feelings. I cried all morning. Oh my God.
We've been playing around with Lovable for building like landing pages and stuff, and it's pretty neat.
I love my Base 44 CMS that I built, right? Other than I've got one core URL structuring problem where it says slug instead of allowing me to put like a blog directory. But overall, all of my websites are now AI powered off of the Base 44 CMS. I'll let you know when I move it if it gets any better.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you export the code out of Base 44 to?
You can connect your app. Wait, okay. So how do you migrate off of Base 44? Inside of Base 44, it allows you to connect your app to GitHub. So you upload the code. Now, there's a lot of back-end Base 44 code that's not part of that. Then you have to go in and manually export your databases. It does not allow you to export them in bulk or to sync them, say, to like an Amazon Supabase or Amazon AWS or Supabase. So then you've got to export them. You connect the code. It's in GitHub. You connect GitHub to Lovable. It populates the code. You tell it to clean out any base 44, and then you start importing your tables, and you should have a functioning app in Lovable pretty quick. I haven't had a chance to do that. All of this is just new in the last 24 hours. In fact, all of my issues with base 44's mods yesterday happened around 2 p.m. I logged off. I'm like, whatever, I'm done, no big deal. And then right before I went to bed, I picked up my phone at like 8:15, and I just like was looking at notifications, and I'm like, I've got like 45 Reddit messages from this guy going off across all of my posts, and I'm taking screenshots, and I'm like, I tried to respond to a few of them. I'm like, I'm just gonna go to bed. And I woke up this morning and it was all gone.
Wow.
Absolutely crazy. Base 44, good job on your Discord mods.
Is this some sort of a micro indicator of the AI bubble, you think?
It could be, right? You figure Wix would have some reins or oversight like on quality control, security, database integrity, professionalism. But who knows?
It's crazy. Speaking of like another maybe micro indicator, it's crazy how there are AI engineers at Facebook who are higher paid than Zuckerberg is. It's not
Now,
something.
Facebook did announce yesterday a hiring freeze and a pay freeze on their AI teams. That's after spending billions of
Yeah,
dollars, but they just reorganized everybody again. I don't know if that was Friday or Monday, and are now like they've got a freeze on everything. They're like, okay, we've spent our money. Now we got to figure out what to do with it. These are little indicators, though. These are the cracks in the foundation. Now, are there growing pains in every industry, and are there going to be growing pains in AI? Absolutely. Is AI going to be anything like blockchain, where 99.9% of all of the projects were smoke and mirrors? No, but it's probably going to be high 90s. 95% of what's in the market today is not going to be there. I think the Netscape comparison from a NASDAQ market perspective is just as important as a Netscape, AOL, and then came Google.
right.
Is anybody using Netscape or AOL anymore?
Don't forget Axe Jeeves.
Ask Jeeves, I remember that one. I had a sales call today where I talked to them about my first experience selling online. And I always use it as kind of like to show a breadth of experience. And I'm like, I was selling long distance services for a company called Excel in San Diego through GeoCities in 1997. And you know what the bonus was if you bought from me?
What was it?
Got a free pager.
Wow.
So I was selling long distance services in pagers on GeoCities. GeoCities doesn't exist anymore. That's the thing. All of these big AI names, right? Which one's Google? Which one's Netscape?
Yeah.
Like Netscape was so massive at the time of its IPO that no one would have thought just a few years later, a decade later, it wouldn't exist or whatever. I mean, I would have to look up. I've looked up before. It kind of went through acquisition, transition, things like that. But there's nobody's using Netscape anymore.
Right.
Jeeves, I remember those commercials.
Right. Interesting. Well, Nvidia reports tomorrow after the bell.
Big on the financial side. I think the last thing I wanted to talk about today on this is that content, right? Content on social media. You and I have been chatting about this a little bit. We've been running this podcast for a while, been going really heavy in disseminating the content across multiple channels. And I've learned a couple things from this that now that I compare to the influencer marketing space, I can see holes, and holes are in essence opportunities, right? So let's go like, what are the three big things I've learned from staying consistent in posting 3 times a day across all social media channels for 90 days? Well, number one is the algorithm is the algorithm, and it's different on every platform. YouTube, I can see 10 videos in a row go 1,000 views, then 10 videos in a row go 50 views. And the content's not all that different. So algorithmically, YouTube's propping some stuff up and putting it out there to say, hey, do you all like this? And then it's pulling it back. Then it's trying it again.
Because they don't like it.
Well, yeah.
Are these
LinkedIn,
reels on,
though. Go ahead.
are these reels on YouTube?
Yes. Yeah, YouTube Shorts. Um, LinkedIn is the most interesting one. I can tell that the variety of content that we create, talking about wealth, talking about marketing, talking about AI, the LinkedIn algorithm does not like that. My posts that used to get 400 or 500 views are now getting 20. So
Mm,
what I am looking at doing, at least on the shorts side, is I'm going to go back through LinkedIn. I'm going to clean up all of the wealth stuff, all of the non-marketing AI stuff, and do the same thing that I did with the Facebook page for results marketing, and only send a LinkedIn posts that have a hashtag marketing in it to kind of get that reorganization around my LinkedIn profile being about running not a marketing agency, but a fractional CMO marketing style business. I think that'll fix LinkedIn.
interesting.
Oh,
Go ahead.
macro though, major lack of focus on viral content. The single thing that works for the influencers that we worked with was understanding the viral trends, right? There, you find your 5, let's call them keywords. You go into Instagram and you type in, let's say, financial freedom, and you look at the top 30 posts. You look at the hook, you look at the music, you look at the intro, and then you copy it, right? And you do that for 5 different verticals. You post 3 of those a day. 90% of the time, you will get viral reach on one of those posts in a month, and it will blow up your audience, which is the main problem that we have: 0 audience growth or 2% audience growth. That is completely missing from all of this. So I am trying to figure out a way to supplement what we are doing with this content while segmenting it by platform and then complementing it with viral content. I just don't have the time to make all of those viral reels.
I
Got to
think what
figure
you
out how to
need
do
is,
that.
I think you need a reel about Taylor Swift getting engaged a few hours ago.
I know I saw that. Oh, so what's the biggest news today? Taylor Kelsey is now off the market. I'm sorry.
Nice.
I'm sorry, everybody. I'm sorry. She's now off the market. She would never change her name, but we'll see how that goes.
There
There's
you
our
go.
viral reel, right?
Good viral reel. Yep. Make sure you hashtag it up.
Hashtag it up. All right. Richard, any thoughts on that examination of the basic data?
No.
Nope. Any other final thoughts for this podcast? Nope. You're just a ball of fire over there. All right. I'm Roger Bryan, and that's Richard Lorenzo. We'll see you next week on the Raising Millionaires podcast. Thanks.